Hi kids, I'm here at a terrible storm at sea. I know that storms are no fun for anybody. The lightning, the thunder, it's all kind of scary. But a storm is especially scary if you're on the water in a boat, because your whole boat will go tossing and turning in the waves. Today we have an interesting story about what happened to Paul as he was on his way to the city of Rome on a big ship, and the ship got caught in a terrible storm. Watch what happens. When the time came for Paul to face trial in Rome, they came across strong winds that were blowing straight at them that made it hard to keep the ship on course. Passing the island of Cyprus, they sailed along the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia, landing at Myra. There they changed ships. Paul and some of the other prisoners would continue on to Italy. After several days of slow and hard sailing, they finally neared Cnidus. However, the wind was blowing against them, so the captain of the ship sailed to safer waters at Fair Havens. The weather was becoming dangerous for sea travel. Paul spoke to the ship's officers. "I believe there is trouble ahead if we go on. Shipwreck, loss of cargo, and danger to our lives as well." But the ship's captain wanted to keep going. They pulled up anchor and sailed close to the shore of Crete, but the weather changed quickly, and a wind of hurricane strength swept across the island and blew them out to sea. The sailors couldn't turn the ship into the wind, so they gave up and let the wind take it. They bound ropes around the hull of the ship to strengthen it. They also lowered the sea anchor to slow the ship down. The next day, as strong winds continued to batter the ship, the crew began throwing cargo overboard. The following day, they threw more things overboard. The terrible storm raged for many days, blotting out the sun and the stars until at last all hope was gone. No one had eaten for a long time. Paul called the crew together and said, "Men, you should have listened to me and not left Crete. But take courage. None of you will lose your lives, even though the ship will go down. Last night, an angel of God stood beside me and said, 'Don't be afraid, Paul, for you will stand trial before Caesar. God in his goodness has granted safety to everyone sailing with you. So take courage. We will be shipwrecked on an island.'" About midnight on the 14th night of the storm, the sailors sensed land was near. They dropped a weighted line and found that the water was very deep. A little later, they measured again and found it was not deep at all. They were afraid they would be driven against the rocks along the shore, so they drew out 4 anchors from the back of the ship and prayed for daylight. The sailors planned to abandon the ship by lowering the lifeboat. Paul said to the commanding officer and the soldiers, "You will all die unless the sailors stay aboard." So the soldiers cut the ropes to the lifeboat and let it drift away. Just as day was dawning, Paul urged everyone to eat. "Please eat something now for your own good, for not a hair of your heads will perish." Then he took some bread, gave thanks to God, and broke off a piece and ate it. All 276 men on board were encouraged and began to eat. The crew lightened the ship further by throwing the cargo of wheat overboard. When morning dawned, they didn't recognize the coastline. It was the island of Malta. They wondered if they could get to shore by running the ship aground. So they cut off the anchors and lowered the rudders, raised the sail, and headed straight toward the shore. They ran the ship aground too soon. The bow of the ship stuck fast, while the stern was repeatedly smashed by the waves and began to break apart. The soldiers were afraid the prisoners would escape, and then they would be in big trouble. But since the commanding officer liked Paul so much, he told the soldiers to let the prisoners swim to shore. Those who could swim jumped overboard and headed for land. The others held on to pieces of wood from the broken ship. Just as the angel had said, everyone made it safely to the shore. Through everything that Paul went, God showed him what was going to happen in the future so that he wouldn't be afraid and so that he could tell the others not to be afraid too. Now, we don't always know what's going to happen in the future, but we do have the Bible, and that assures us that God will take care of us, and we can trust him, and that he has good plans for us in the future. And that's something to look forward to. I hope you all have a wonderful week.